Okay. Was it doing that last time with the numbers?
I actually
okay, you weren't looking.
I wasn't looking.
Okay, hello, this is Tom Cox visiting again my channel. Thank you very much for being here. We kind of started on a little interview before, but it wasn't being recorded, so we're going to give it another shot. I might skip over some of the questions or the things I've been saying because he answered them. But we were just talking about stuff that I don't understand, like geopolitics and some other kind of politics, and you know, that there's aliens here, and that it's just good to become aware that we're not alone. I guess what do you, from what you've learned from the people that you know who have been visited or have had connection with whatever they extraterrestrials or other life forms other than human, what are some like exciting things that you've learned or positive things about what we could look forward to as a future perspective, possible timeline?
Well, it's certainly very interesting times that we live in, and good to be back here again and talking again. We certainly live in very interesting times, to say the least, in terms of visitors from elsewhere. Some might call them off-worlders. Sometimes that's a word that gets used in science fiction. I like that expression more than I do aliens, because of the connotation relating to illegal aliens, et cetera, et cetera. Or non-terrestrials. Either one. It certainly would seem to be the case. A lot more sightings are happening now than just even a few years ago. There's definitely something heating up, and we were talking about how complex our world is in terms of geopolitics alone. What one can glean from the media, owned and operated by 6 corporations, most of it's misinformation and propaganda. I think it's pretty clear to most intelligent people anyway. Very difficult to discern what's actually going on and what's not, because of how corrupt the general establishment is and has become. So then, when you add to the layer of geopolitics, everything that's visibly going on in our world, or however much it can be seen, then when you add a whole other layer, what's called exopolitics, it has to do with the collusion of humanity and government and military with different off-world groups that are not altogether a happy bunch. They're not on our side. They're not looking out for the interest of humanity. They're looking more to exploit the Earth's resources and ourselves as a human resource in all different ways. So there are stories that exist of human trafficking off-world, not just in our world, among humans. And this has been going on for thousands of years. One could go into great detail to do with that. Very unfortunate, very sad reality. So in terms of what can be looked forward to on a planet,
well, I think we always hear so much about like human trafficking and like reptilian races that are just like, an AI that's like taking our energy and siphoning it off, and we're just totally, anybody who like falls for it is going to like be in some shithole timeline, and it's pretty doom and gloom. So it's just like, what are the positive aspects, and like if we are like at some point really, if we are the ones that maybe they or whatever that aspect of our own universe tries to contain and feed off of, like if we are the energy source, it's like we are the pure creators and we are the creative potential. It's like if we focus on all the negative, it just feels like, it's good to become aware of the positive, to see what is going on, to be in a place of like illuminating the shadow, so to speak. But then it's also like nice to have what can be done, what can be envisioned, what's the collective envision that we could possibly be going towards in the midst of all this? Because you just don't hear that a lot, you know?
Yeah, it's true. It's true. It doesn't sell so well to be
Positive.
yeah, tremendously positive and
but it does to people who are moving to the lighter body.
Yes, right. So it's always a matter of, as I see it, of finding out the balance between the two, being realistic, being optimistic, as much as possible.
Just like an offering of like some possible, projections of positivity to just like, I think just focusing on positive would balance out the negative. But as a person, I see you'd want to be balanced and not.
Yeah.
You don't want to ignore what is.
Yes, yeah. If there's too much denial, then those whatever dark forces have too much free reign.
Yeah, it's like the dark night or whatever.
It's our ignorance and denial
that
has allowed humanity to be brought to the brink at this point, to an absolute precipice.
I know, it's almost like through an awakening, you see the darkness first.
So it's a bit like Aikido. One takes the energy, the force of one's opponent, and uses it against them. In other words, one could say that you find the opportunity in the obstacle.
Sure.
So what's the opportunity look like in terms of the obstacle of so much infiltration and control of our planet from various groups?
Right.
Largely the Orion group, so I understand, that have considered themselves owners of our planet for thousands of years. That now appears to be greatly threatened from various contactees. How true that is, only time will tell. But how is it in terms of a collective view versus how things operate on an individual level? Individually, we all reach adolescence, right? We all get to a point of having to become an adult. The same is true of the human race collectively. Where are we at in our development on that scale as a race? We're somewhere between puberty and adolescence. Maybe we're 17 years old, about to become an adult. And how is it with a teenager? They go through tremendous challenges in terms of having to grow up. So is this not also true of humanity right now? We're going through tremendous challenges in order to grow up. So you have in the Mayan tradition the prophecy that we're going from a global civilization or a global consciousness to a galactic civilization and a galactic consciousness that has to do with these other groups and races that are teeming all around us in our own solar system and beyond. So it's said by various contactees, this seems to be universally understood. There's so many different narratives. Who can say which one is more true than the other? But just given all the various narratives that exist from different contactees, some are very obviously controlled opposition. Maybe one or two or three seem to me unedited, not controlled, in my years of inquiry and research into the whole world of exopolitics. So I try to focus on that perspective, the Mayan prophecy as such. So this is not to say that it's going to be easy. It's never easy for a developing consciousness human being going from adolescence to adulthood. There's obviously going to be a process of destruction, loss. It's already happening. It's happening right now. The Great Bifurcation, some call it. So much of it has to do with an agenda that relates to depopulation, something that's been planned for a century and a half at least. We're too many. We can't be controlled. So there are some subjects you can't talk about in social media and here on YouTube and wherever else this might be posted, because of how unbelievable the censorship has become. this is very sad, but it's also very telling. It's also very indicative of how a great deal of the truth is starting to burst out into the public domain. And it's like trying to put a lid back on Pandora's box from the perspective of our controllers, of our corporate financiers, of the banking cartels, et cetera, et cetera. And at this point, they're desperate. It's always an act of desperation when censorship becomes so draconian. And notice the root word there, draconian, Draco, which is what the so-called reptilians. It's one of the names for them. Yes, well, they come from a constellation, the Draconis constellation. So it is said. So it is alleged.
Do you see any kind of collapse in the systems that have been set up anytime soon?
Well, how to possibly avoid the collapse of a financial system that was rigged to fail to begin with. It's a scarcity economic system, a debt as money system. It all has to do with how money has to be paid to the Federal Reserve, a private institution, for the printing of our money. So there's an interest that has to be paid, so you have to print more money to pay the interest. So in order for that interest to continuously be paid, you have to keep printing more and more money. And so then more and more money goes into circulation. And as the amount of money in circulation increases, the value of it naturally diminishes. So inflation is built in this way. It's so rigged. Literally, you go to a bank and you take out a loan, and you think, oh, it's the bank's money. No, they just write in that amount in a ledger and say, okay, this money is now created, in essence. It's actually your money. And the big scam is that it's their money. How is money backed in terms of its actual value? One might wonder, since the gold standard disappeared many years ago now. It is us. It is our human value as a resource, as an energy to create.
I did notice that, like, when they were handing out like relief funds during COVID, it didn't seem like the economy boosted. It seemed like everything, like, we were like, okay. It just didn't seem to really. We just decided, okay, we'll give everybody money.
Yeah. So what I understand is, and there's some evidence for this, and it may be wrong, but I've seen some evidence for this, that there is a treasury account in all our names that we don't know about, that literally backs the value of money. So so you divide the amount of money.
So we're the ones that are the value.
Yes, we're the value. So maybe we each of us have $1.5 million in this treasury account that backs the value of money, and we don't even know about it. I have a friend who literally figured out a way that somebody figured out how to use the number on the back of your Social Security card as a routing number to access that, or something like that. I forget exactly what it was, but it was something like that. And literally, this person that I know was paying some of his bills this way until they shut it down.
How do we have a value before we're just
this has to do with our birth certificate, which is in actuality is a collateral bank note.
Oh, and so we have like a bond.
Yes. So nobody gets the original. Nobody gets their original birth certificate.
So
we get a copy.
Do they own our bond?
So it's like we are the collateral bond for money.
Ew.
In terms of our very birth certificate.
Ew.
So you'll see at the bottom of a birth certificate a number. I think it's in red. It's in red. That's our treasury account number the number value as a human being to do with our financial system.
So if like this comes out and like this stuff becomes more available to public knowledge, then this could help collapse.
Well, who knows how things will sort of dovetail in terms of awareness
right?
and events. Well, if a positive eventuality is possible, is going to happen, then yes, if humanity is going to keep itself in the dark ages and its collective head in the sand, then and continue to be in denial about how the very financial system that we're a part of, that we take for granted, that is so rigged to exploit humanity. One could go into the details of how the black budget operates as such, why this was set up to create a black budget, $60 trillion disappearing from the Treasury, mainly through the Pentagon, since the 1950s. Where did $60 trillion go? Think about how that could have benefited our world, $60 trillion. So where did it go? It would appear into building so-called breakaway civilization for the elites, the elite class, the 0.01%.
Okay.
So, one could go into all of that in terms of creating a financial system that's going to exploit humanity so that they can build their breakaway civilization. And this has to do with the collusion between negative off-world forces and the corrupt, corporatist human being on planet Earth.
Yeah.
So how then to unravel all of this? How then can we destruct?
Well, it's also tricky because it's interesting. Like when you go into the 0 point and you are in this realization that you're everything, then this thing that's doing this is us as well. But as we're in the fold of the perceived fragmentation of the one.
Well, this has to do. This has to do.
It's so trippy.
This has to do with self-empowerment.
So how much blame and it's them, and what can we do just in our own enlightenment process to maybe acknowledge that shadow? And I've also heard people say and this is where your crystals come into maybe the conversation is just they say if you raise your vibration, if you get closer to the one, closer to the truth, and out of the shadow dance and out of the shadow play, you can kind of heal it all. Or you can if you raise your vibration, you won't be affected by EMFs, you won't be affected by and this crystals technology is a way to no longer have those footholds within your body, within your psyche, to even identify with that realm. And that, to me, I feel this is the realm we're in, but it's fucked. Maybe I shouldn't swear, I'm not sure, but the wars that go on.
There's appropriate in profanity and inappropriate profanity. And that maybe is more appropriate.
It's a good time, yeah. And then, if we really are all one, it's you do got to look at the shadow. You can't totally ascend without it. I really don't know the rules, but I'm assuming. I assume. So yeah, let's just talk about well, maybe any advice you have for people to do and I think the crystal comes in really perfect for that too, is to raise that vibration, to maybe not have to so much recycle in that timeline, and to ascend and help other people to maybe not get affected by what they've put upon us.
Well, the time, it couldn't be more important. Whatever spiritual practice we do for the sake of purification. Purification is so important right now. Whatever happens collectively, if your personal individual karma is not to experience it, then you're not going to be nearly so affected as those who are in the epicenter of whatever storm, so to speak. So there are various practices one can do. Last time we talked, we went into great depth and detail about the path of Tibetan Buddhism, Vajrayana, and there are very powerful practices there for the purpose of purifying our karmic field, so to speak. So that maybe the whole world around us is in a state of suffering, but because we've transcended at the level of consciousness and are not, or to whatever degree, and are not identifying with all the suffering happening around us, rather, not to say that we're not empathizing and not doing everything we can, but our own personal suffering has become a lot less. So when one gets to that point, then it begins to become established a ground of equanimity, It's all about generating equipoise, equanimity, not being attached to good or bad. Good things happening in the world, fine. Bad things happening in the world, fine. Ultimately, it's all about seeing everything and everyone as equal, because that's the reality. Energetically, in the quantum, in terms of quantum physics, everything is equal. It's all energy, equal in nature. Our consciousness, we all share the same consciousness. In terms of how the consciousness is expressed, that's what we call soul. But when the ego and the body perish, so does soul as an expression of consciousness. So there's pure consciousness, and then there's everything else that is all part of the illusion. So all of it, inherently is an opportunity to transcend whatever the appearances are in our world. To no longer identify with it, but rather see it as an opportunity to progress, to get beyond all of our attachments that give rise to all our troubles. Last time, I think we went into some detail about thoughts and emotions. Gaining mastery over our thoughts, then we gain mastery over our emotions. And this has to do with coming to see everything in a very equal way. And this has to do with doing whatever purification practices, whatever the practice is, meditation. So then how does this relate then to the collective scale right now in terms of our original point to do with the collective, the geopolitics and then the exopolitics? How do we extricate ourselves as a society, as a people, as a culture, as a global culture, from all these incredibly poisonous systems that have been designed to control humanity? How do we undo all of this? How do we extricate ourselves from all of it in as graceful a way as possible? So much has to do with as many people as possible engaging on this level of personal practice. But also doing whatever we can outwardly, externally, to contribute to increasing awareness of these issues. Made much more difficult in these times of tremendous censorship, but we do what we can. We speak to those. We learn to sense where there's openness and where there's not. We make mistakes. Oh, I shouldn't have talked about that with that person. Triggered them, etc., etc. One refines slowly over time, more and more, what you can talk about and what you can't. So that's secondary. That's of secondary importance, but still very important. That this activism.
It does seem, in general, most awakenings begin with what's gone wrong, like kind of the beginning of the Matrix. Like, holy shit. Like, it was trauma. His awakening was traumatic. Like.
Yes, yeah. So, in other words, in a sense, there's a great blessing in being born in a tremendously troubled time like this, because it's so ripe for opportunity at the individual level of our own purification, our own movement and progression towards so-called enlightenment. Whereas if you're born into a time of a golden age and everything is so very hunky-dory and you just walk down the street and you can get whatever food, entertainment, etc. Nobody has to work like they do in this society, which is so much about economic slavery, etc., etc. It's a bit of a paradox. It's a tremendous paradox, really. There's so many planets out there, as I understand it, where it's a literal kind of golden age going on, where it's easy peasy. You don't have to make money. It's an absurd notion that you would have to pay money to live on your own planet. This is a point made by Alex Collier.
So we're not necessarily here to ascend into a golden age. We're like here to fully realize.
Yeah, to fully realize. That's the ultimate point. And we can pray. So as well, we can pray for others' happiness, others' well-being. That's part of our own enlightenment process, is to really aspire to benefit others, to bring all others to a state of freedom, liberation, enlightenment. And so in that, we're talking about a super long scale. Eons, obviously, because you look around just in this yard here, there's who knows how many ants, thousands of ants probably, crawling around here on this property here. All of those are beings on the path, and it's going to take who knows how many lifetimes as ants to finally get to be human, and then so many countless lives as a human to finally become liberated, and so seemingly limitless, all the conscious sentient beings that exist throughout time and space. It's one seriously long haul.
What's the difference from like the golden age experience and like full liberation?
A golden age.
Golden age is just everything being really easy.
Yeah, so there's a lot less opportunity to develop compassion.
Okay.
There's
so,
no
yeah.
basis for compassion. Very little basis for compassion. There's very little suffering. Then why should I become more compassionate? Why? Because, as it is said, in many spiritual traditions, compassion, love, is our love and compassion is our.
So it's
our
like
essence.
we have the most love in the midst of all this, in a sense.
It's what makes us unique as humans is our capacity for love and compassion.
Because the vastness of dark and light here. That's interesting.
So that's
why would we want it to end then? Why would we want it to collapse and move on to something better?
Well, then.
Because we paid our dues as a human.
What is? What's being collapsed? Our own individual reality or the collective one, or both?
I don't know.
So
I guess why? Because we always it just seems like, gosh, well, there's all this suffering here. When is there going to be the financial collapse? When are we going to have the disclosure? Like, when are we going to be able to be free? Like in a golden age, where we own our money. We don't have to work in a machine, But because we're being so pressurized by dark energies in the midst of like really light energies, there's this development of love that is incomprehensible because of the contrast. And so my question is, like, I guess, do we want to go through this process of contrast, really develop this sense of compassion and love, and then move into this other lovely age with this like ability to know what love is? Or do we want to get rid of this? Like, I don't know. Like, I don't know why.
Well, the only real answer to that question, as I see it, is it's nothing to be attached to either way.
Yeah, definitely.
Things are going to happen the way they're going to happen, and the whole deal is how do we orient ourselves to it? And as I was saying before, just really working on ourselves in terms of developing equanimity.
Yeah.
And then we become fine with however things are.
Yeah.
At the same time, that doesn't mean that there's apathy there.
Yeah, or we watch somebody kill our neighbor.
Great compassion and equanimity are linked.
Yes.
Compassion becomes limitless when we perfected equanimity. So does love. So does joy.
It's just, when we talk about it this way, I just see the beauty in all the freaking hell. It's so weird. But anyway, I think we should talk about your crystal healing technology.
Yeah,
and
so
I really like.
So yeah, in terms of all the things that are changing in a positive way too, to meet this kind of desperate wave of the dark forces to keep control over our world, which seems to be slipping from their grasp, but not without collateral damage. A lot of efforts are coming to the fore too to meet that wave, particularly in terms of healing. So you have the healing technology of Dr. Sandra Rose Michael that involves scalar wave science that has a profound effect on many. Within 24 hours, so many different conditions get healed with her stuff. It's amazing, remarkable stuff. And then there's a project that I'm connected with that has to do with so-called Vogel crystal, which is faceted according to the sacred geometry of the Tree of Life, or the Sephiroth in the Kabbalah. So it's a fashioning of quartz crystal that optimizes its power to heal and to generate vision and well-being. So you have a vocal crystal in your space. It has a very pacifying, harmonizing effect for whatever negative energies, and can help to sharpen our intuition, our insight, and can help to bring good fortune too, to have these lying about in our space. So I'm involved with a project that has to do with harnessing the energy of the vocal crystal using light. And it's a technology called the Lightron, something I've been working with for 7 or 8 years now, something like that, or maybe more like 10 years. And so how it works is when you flash a quick burst of light through a vocal crystal, it generates a photonic energy field, kind of conically expanding outward, of subtle photonic energy. And when you arrange a number of them, in this case 9 of them, around a table or a bed, and you flash strobe light, in this case LED strobes, through the quartz crystals in different patterns and frequencies, it generates a much stronger energy field, in as much as they overlap. Each energy field overlaps with all the others. So 9 energy fields overlap in the center to exponentially amplify and become like a vortex of light energy that fills the body of the person lying there, permeates their physical body to the extent that you can really feel it. You feel lighter physically, as though one's mass were slightly diminishing. You feel a calmness and a well-being that hitherto didn't seem possible. So it's like many sessions of psychotherapy in a single session, in terms of removing so much of the trapped emotional trauma, for instance, that we have stored in our body. Mm-hmm. So something happened to you when you were 6 years old, mm-hmm. your first traumatic event. At that point, we don't really have the tools to process it, so we put it somewhere, here, there, wherever it might be, and that energy, like a knot, blocks whatever the pranic flow is in the body, and that's where conditions begin to metastasize, cancerous tumors, whatever it is, it's equal to the emotional trapped energy. Whatever the physical condition is always a connection between the emotional trapped energy and physical conditions that are coming about. So you remove, it's like you drain the swamp in the body of these trapped emotional energies. You're disengaging then those physical conditions from their source, and they spontaneously heal. So that's what happens much of the time over many sessions for all various kinds of conditions. With prototype that I have used, what's called the Lightron. So at this point, we're now getting to the point of finally being able to develop the next prototype that will see the light of day finally, in terms of getting marketed and out there. So if anyone has seen some of these science fiction movies that depict so-called med beds, this is something of what is being worked on here to be developed. It works on the genetic level eventually, in a very harnessed and focused way. At this point, it's more general, the energy field, in terms of activating the so-called liquid crystals in the cell membranes of the body. They're literally crystals called cholesterol esters in the cell membranes of the body that are largely inactive, dormant. And when you fill the body with this photonic energy, then it has an activating effect. It's as though we're turning on the light body nature of our physical form. And that seems to be kind of like a bridge, that the liquid crystals in our cell membranes between the physical body and the light body. So we all have a light body that underlies this physical body. The physical body is an extension of the light body, one might say. So literally, it seems to me that the essence of this energy field that's generated is the light body itself. So when you're bathed in the very energy of your light body, it's naturally going to be activating your light body, what they call the Merkaba in the Kabbalistic tradition, or the Sambhogakaya in the Buddhist tradition. And when this begins to happen, our natural state becomes more and more rising to the surface, having to do with love, compassion, joy, empathy, all our good qualities, because that's the only thing that's really real that has to do with this light body. Everything else is an obscuration. Our negative tendencies based on whatever attachments that we've formed, so-called skandhas, giving rise to behavior patterns that have to do with who we are, how we operate, in all kinds of dysfunctional ways so much of the time. So it's operating on two levels, both the energetic level in terms of purifying trapped emotional energies, and in the process having a tremendous effect in terms of healing whatever conditions. But one can't speak of it in that way, of course. It's stress relief. It's stress relief. It's stress relief.
I like the idea of, like, we have this dormant crystallization energy that's like can be crystallized, and like through that, because the crystal is like the constant, right? The unchanging, like the one, and so we have that within us, and that can like activate that and bring us in closer to the unchanging.
Yes, right. It's the unchanging state.
State, that's so powerful.
Yes, yeah. And our essence is the light body. So one can't make any claims that it heals anything. But what it does.
Well, like same goes to like goji berries and
Yes, right. It's helping to create a condition whereby one is in a more calm, relaxed state, so that the body can heal itself. So it itself is nothing that heals. So that's the disclaimer here for the AI or the establishment listening in right now.
Mm-hmm. Do you have a way to share it when it becomes available, or?
Yeah. At some point here within the next year to year and a half, we'll most likely, if all goes well, it'll be coming to market. And
so you have like resources that people can like tag on to follow you to see when you can offer it. And I think I had a subscriber ask for your teachings, like the things you wrote.
Yes, yeah,
one
of my books. Yeah, I provided that link. That was in the comments of the last.
You contacted her?
I just responded. I just replied with a link to the.
You did? I didn't see that.
Yeah. My book on Padmasambhava, that epic verse retelling of his life story.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
All right. So where can they find you? Like follow you to see maybe when you have the technology available for the public, if possible, when that they can follow you.
Well, we're in the process of developing some, several websites, both to do with this technology, and then also there's a water technology that I'm involved with as well, that can potentially provide some serious solutions to that issue in our world as well. And as time goes on, there will be more information available. At this very formative point, there's not really a lot more to say other than what I'm sharing here.
But just maybe like your links so that people can follow you.
Yes, right. So I have a YouTube channel, Common Sense Dharma, all one word. I think it's all one word. And you can follow me on.
I can link it too if you send it to me.
Yes, yeah. On Facebook too, I'll be making announcements. I will at some point be creating a page that has to do with these technologies, and elsewhere. But in the meantime, a point that will most certainly be used to make announcements will be my YouTube channel, Rumble channel, Common Sense Dharma.
Do you have it on both?
I have it on both
sites?
Rumble and
Yeah.
YouTube. Yeah.
Do you just post both at the same
Yeah,
time?
yeah, pretty much. Yeah, yeah. Well,
But if you're like going below the belt, then you'll go just straight Rumble.
correct.
Got it.
Yes, right. Yeah, the discussion is too controversial. Yes, there's certain subjects we can't talk about here. Oh my goodness, the elephant is so big and stinky, but boy, can't talk about that elephant. No way. Or you're snuffed out online. It's no different now than it was in Nazi Germany, as far as I'm concerned, in this country. So one does one's best to fight the good fight, and not let these
and
forces
yet, in the state of
succeed.
equanimity, we give up the fight.
Well,
Or
yes,
the
that's only
irony.
the appearance. It's all a matter of so where are we coming from in the fight? Far more effective place or disposition that we're coming from in this fight. If we come from equanimity, and fiercely so, far more effective how we're going to affect the reality around us, rather than investing whatever egoic energy has to do with
Personal energy.
anger or
Trauma.
fear, trauma, hatred, jealousy,
Yeah.
whatever.
And you just perpetuate.
That
that
yes, right.
energy.
So much angry social activism out there, fist upraised. That's only feeding the polarity.
It's like what that wants.
It's what that wants. That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Because then it's easier to.
It keeps it there.
It's easier to infiltrate with agents provocateurs that then use that very movement against itself. So you have all these NGOs that have created a lot of these social causes that are the very seeming face of these social causes to control it. One could point out some major ones here, but this might flag your video too.
Yeah, don't do that.
Yeah, don't want that. But use your intelligence. Look at some of these major, more particularly on the left than the right. Ironically, it used to be the left was more conscious and awake, and now the right
that's part of the
seems to
whole
be.
trickery. Go ahead and switch the party.
Yeah. It's a ever shifting slideshow of the horrific.
Smoke and mirrors.
Yeah.
It's pretty entertaining and pretty horrific.
The revolution will not be televised, someone once said. It's what's happening right in front of you, not on the little screen. That's the opposite. That's everything else but that.
What a very prophetic song. That's such a good song.
Yeah. It's completely futile to take in whatever news program. I don't even pay attention to any of it anymore, because it's already well understood that.
You're being fed by them. That's funny. I met a conspiracy theorist, quote unquote. I don't know, a long time ago, and he gave me he was a pretty wealthy dude collecting gold and stuff and guns. And he gave me $500 worth of books. I mean, there's no way I could have read through it, but it was pretty extraordinary. And anyway, it doesn't really have anything to do with anything other than that was my first exposure to the banking systems, the other things that are called names that I don't want to name, Twin Tower stuff. I was like, wow, this guy's a lot.
Yes. As far as I'm concerned, the phrase conspiracy theorist just means that your critical thinking faculties are still relatively intact.
I know, right?
To believe that anything that is a so-called conspiracy theory is automatically untruth is insane. As much as it is insane to believe in every single one of them, like some do.
Well,
It's all a matter of discerning which ones are true and which
also,
aren't,
you can
and
get
to what
stuck
degree.
there. You can get stuck there.
You can get stuck there.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
You become obsessed with.
Yeah, and that's what I wanted to kind of bring up in this is that's a thing. it does need to be talked about. It is a part of the awakening. You're not who you think you are. What's going on isn't what you think. It's definitely not being expressed on the media, and it's good. Like, and I think that's happening, you know. And then there's going to be like a flare up, but then hopefully then moving into that state of equanimity and looking at all still as yourself.
Yeah. So, in other words, it's all samsara. It's all Maya. It's all illusion. Become acquainted with samsara, Maya, illusion, in terms of looking at some of these issues in our world. Come to some understanding of just what's wrong. You know, our financial system being one example. But at a certain point, don't just drown in the ocean of samsara. How to start cultivating the awareness of samsara is nirvana. Samsara is nirvana. It's an old.
Samsara is nirvana.
Samsara is nirvana. It's an old saying that has to do with the ultimate non-dual state. So, what's the difference between samsara and nirvana? Nirvana is the state of enlightenment. All things is enlightened. Everything is already enlightened. So, what is samsara? Samsara is our misperception of nirvana. We are not seeing things as they are. We're already in nirvana. But because of our attachment to everything as real as samsara, we divorce ourselves from our inherent nirvanic nature.
Is God a jealous God?
Is God, yes, any so-called jealous God is demonic in nature, I would say, because that's a negative energy, negative emotional energy, jealousy.
Jealousy is definitely negative.
Yeah.
So it's like the God. I was just thinking of it more as like someone told me once, God cries misses us and cries for us and longs for like.
Well, from a non-dual perspective, there's only the appearance of God as such, as separate from ourselves.
Oh no, it's like an expression within the story.
Yes, that's right. So right now, relatively, okay, God, hey God, hi me, any kind of
Because the one doesn't have a personality without the separate self. There's no personality in the nirvana, is there?
Well, ultimately, yeah. There's no self per se.
There's no personality, so you can't use a word like.
Well, there's the essential personality of love and compassion.
Is that? But
The
that's
essence
still
of love
within
and
the
compassion.
duality.
So yeah, personality arises from the so-called five poisons.
Doesn't compassion too still arrive from separation? Like like you can't know any of these things without separation.
Yes, yeah. Well, here we are in this dualistic world, in these dualistic states, and everything has its appearance, its seeming reality. But this is what is samsara. Samsara is a misperception of things as they are.
But it seems so really beautiful to exist in duality, in the midst of remembering.
But so what is that? What is that beauty?
Clean. It seems clean, like a clean experience of separation within the awareness.
So what is that? What is that beauty? What's the reality of that beauty? What are we experiencing when we're experiencing beauty?
Love and compassion.
We're experiencing the nirvanic essence. In that moment of wow, this the beautiful, the beauty of how the sunlight is hitting that hibiscus bush over there in the corner. Just at this right time of day, the angle of the sunlight hitting the pond over here, and there's a water lily that's just finishing blossoming there. It's sublime. There's this sublime dissolving of the conceptual mind in the realization of this beauty.
But you still are having and get to play in this garden.
So that's the nirvana.
So it's in duality.
But this is
it's
samsara.
So close. It's so close.
Well, so the non-dual is the dual.
I know. It's so cool.
It's paradoxical this way. So how do we want to experience it? Do we want to transform our dualism, our dualistic perception, into the awareness of the nirvanic beauty around us?
I think we do.
Well, we do. We all do. That's the happiness that we all ultimately wish for. But because of our attachments, always comes down to our attachments. Because of our attachments, we fail to recognize the nature of that beauty, and we grasp onto it. We want to recultivate that same experience. We want to have that same experience again. So we strategize our lives to make the same things happen over and over again, rather than just letting go of all that. And it's like you're walking through a delightful botanical garden. And wow, there's a whole new bank of flowers over there, and a whole new wave of beautiful bushes flowering over here. And it's a constant changing tableau of foliage and flowering. Instead, what do? Oh, that was, you have the thought of, oh, that was really beautiful back there. And you turn your head over to see. And that's when you're taken out of the moment.
Yeah. It's so tight. It's so clean and tight and right. But through the equanimity and just there is no good or bad, it gets you in a place where you will allow yourself the moment to moment.
Yes, that's right. That's right. So that moment to moment experience depends on how much equanimity we cultivate. And this has to do with how much awareness of impermanence we can cultivate. They're really part and parcel of each other. They're really one and the same.
The irony, the impermanence of within the impermanence.
The absolute impermanence. Everything all the time. What are we doing? We look over our shoulder, and we're deepening our sense of attachment to something as permanent there. We're wanting to make it permanent somehow. We've already experienced it.
Yeah.
And we want to make what we're experiencing now somehow permanent. So the table here, we think is so permanent. So how to disengage from this whole process? Just keep going moment to moment. This is what the practice is about.
Yeah,
being mindful and being present all the time. This has to do with awakening our sense of equanimity and our awareness of impermanence as essentially one and the same. So as one grows, the other automatically does. And as our sense of impermanence and equanimity grows, so naturally does our loving kindness, our compassion, and our joy.
Yeah.
That is our birthright.
Yeah, I like that. It reminds me of like the Bible and the Psalms, where like he's always like, God's like, sing me a new song. Sing me a new song.
So in a dark time like this, the fuel for growing this kind of awareness is so potent. Just in the conditions that we're surrounded by, we're put in a position where we have no choice but to grow ourselves in this way. And it's 5 to 10 times more amplified, the power of everything positive we do and the power of everything negative we do, because the stakes are so raised right now in the collective for an ultimate more positive than a negative outcome, because ultimately we do want the human race to continue to keep providing this opportunity for the enlightenment process, what is unique to the experience of being human.
So we don't want to be so subverted into the shadow that we have no place to find illumination.
Yeah. So there's an attempt going on. It has to do with so-called what's called transhumanism, to hijack human consciousness.
Yeah.
The Neuralink, virtual reality. It's what so much of this electronics technology is about, is converting human consciousness into a digital reality.
I think of that movie. I mean, there's like 1,000 movies on it, but remember Vanilla Sky?
Yeah, there's lots of Vanilla Sky. I like the European version better than the Tom Cruise one.
Okay.
Much better, in fact. It's called Open Your Eyes.
I don't know if I've seen it.
Yeah, Spanish movie.
Okay.
Highly recommend that. Okay. That one is much better. There's been so many cautionary tales in the world of film, science fiction, to do with this attempted takeover of human consciousness itself, and it's ultimately all connected. The artificial intelligence, these off-world groups that some of whom appear to be dictated, controlled by artificial intelligence, wherein the real enemy is that, not so much these external appearances of ETs or whatever. They're literally being controlled. The same control system wants to come to our planet, to literally hijack our human experience, where that movie The Matrix.
And be fed off of it. I have a question.
The movie The Matrix, as a metaphor, is very prescient.
Oh, it's amazing. Some of the people that talk about alien agendas and such, they talk about us well, yeah, like solar flash, the photon belt, like there's this period where we are going, our DNA is going to upgrade and we will be in this opportunity to live in different dimensions and live longer.
Yes, right.
Now, is
Yeah.
that true, or is that a part of the agenda? Like, is that,
Yeah.
you don't know?
Who can say until the unfolding?
Until we know, yeah.
Till you know the proof
Because
is
is
in
it
the
like
pudding.
a false light? And is this
Yeah, I think there's
human
going.
condition really,
You know, there
like,
seems to be some real science behind a solar flash, a micronova event, because
it's almost
micronovas
an attempt to
do
save
happen.
humanity?
What's that?
Almost as an attempt to like save humanity, is to have like the sun, the one, the eternal,
Yes,
go
right.
up in like just like your crystal.
Yeah, they call it in Hinduism they call it the Samvardhaka event or flash, and in Buddhism they call it the Samvardha
Okay.
event.
So it's been predicted.
Yeah, periodically, all suns they do what's called a micronova, a mass coronal ejection event. That puts out a wave of plasma throughout its solar system. So it's like a wave that hits everything, expanding from the entire surface of the sun. And the sun is made of plasma. It's not this fusion, like a nuclear bomb that we were taught. It's actually a plasma event. The deeper you go into the sun, the cooler it gets. Why is that? Because it's getting energy from everywhere else. In terms of plasma of other suns, and the plasma that's spread out throughout the vacuum of space is not actual vacuum, but there's very subtle degrees of plasma spread throughout space, and it's all an electric universe in this way. One can research this through a scientific body called the Thunderbolt Group. There's an excellent documentary called The Electric Universe. Plasma, a big wave of plasma hits our planet. Huge auroras happen everywhere, and it's really all a matter of speculation what actually will happen. Some say it's an evolutionary event. Maybe we're all going to be turned to piles of ash. Who can say?
Who knows? Yeah, right.
Or maybe just those who are, the evildoers will
say.
turn into a pile of ash, and
I
the
mean,
rest of us will attain the gold body.
Yeah, well, but we don't. Do we want the golden age, or is the golden age okay in the midst of experiencing such an extraordinary amount of pain and suffering? And also, to live longer lives, you have that ability to become awakened.
Yeah.
You have that time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. That's pretty fun. Thanks.
We'll see. I have a scientist friend who he has some really fancy telescopes and whatnot, and is in the know in terms of astronomy. And he tells me that it wasn't long ago that Proxima B, which is two stars away from us, second closest star from us, had a micronova event occur, I don't know, a decade or two ago. And then the closest sun, which is actually a red dwarf called Barnard's star, did something that one would expect a super or a micronova event to be as a red dwarf. So what's theorized is that there's this what's called a galactic sheath, a wave of energy called a galactic sheath that emanates from the center of our galaxy. It's kind of like you throw a rock into the middle of the pond and a ripple goes out, and this galactic sheath is rippling out from the center of our galaxy, and it's hitting one star system after the next. And a micronova event is happening, and wherever there are inhabited worlds, humanoid consciousness, et cetera, on those worlds, there's a transformational event, a quantum leap in consciousness that happens. So that's the theory. So it's interesting in terms of the actual hard evidence. Proxima D did a micronova. The next closest star, Barnard's star, did something that one could equate as a micronova, as a red dwarf. And so we're next in line, and that would seem, and so it could happen any day. It could happen 10 years from now.
Yeah.
It's unknown how close this ripple is.
Right.
But when it does hit our sun, it's going to be like nothing anybody on the planet has ever experienced or witnessed. So, and this is hard science.
That's cool. I mean, it seems like as you would get closer and the sun comes closer to us, that we would experience more of the breakdown, the upgrading into crystalline at the same time as like the falling away of the physical material. And I mean, it just seems like there is a lot of, put it this way, when I was a kid, I didn't know what anxiety was.
Uh-huh. That's good. You were never anxiety ridden?
Not as a kid. Now I know what it's like.
Okay.
And
sure, become an adult, so you become
I've had a
familiar
dark
with
night
anxiety.
already, but like, I don't know a kid who doesn't have anxiety now. You know
Oh,
what I'm
I know.
saying?
Yeah, right. Gone are the carefree days of being a kid.
I think they're experiencing the collective, like, darkness in the midst of the light, the pressure within their body. I mean, my daughter had a Kundalini awakening at 17.
Oh, and all the gender confusion that's being imposed on young people is just an atrocity, as far as I'm concerned.
It's very confusing, like, because, I mean, we don't even let children drink alcohol, yet make these crazy decisions of, like,
do I want to be am I really a boy or a girl, at the age of 7 or 8?
Well, and then to put drugs and hormones in people's bodies, our hormones are already seem mildly, like, kind of like the Matrix movie. Right?
Well, this is part of the transhumanist agenda, to blur the lines between genders so that it's a lot easier to create this sort of mono reality of consciousness going into the mainframe,
and it really pulls you out of
a more cybernetic.
It pulls you out of the human
reality.
experience.
Pulls you out of the human experience. Right. So there's an inherent polarity between male and female. Has to do with yin and yang.
Which teaches us how to merge.
Well, and it's also relating to the union of wisdom and compassion.
I love that.
So
is the female the wisdom?
So the female is the wisdom.
I knew it.
The male is the compassion. Which might seem antithetical, these men don't seem very compassionate sometimes.
Projection, women's projection on the men and the men's projection on the women, flipped it around.
But of course we all have both within us.
Absolutely.
The male and the female within us.
I think we're over the top masculine. All of us.
Well, our world has been tremendously masculinized.
We've been doing in the garden.
Yeah. It's all about this aggressive yang activity in the world. It's not about balancing the inner and the outer, the yin and the yang.
The equanimity.
Which is where the equanimity lies.
We need to raise the shadow, the feminine consciousness, or whatever you want to call it, to balance out. We just all want to be happy.
Yeah. So, an enlightened being who has perfectly balanced these energies, spontaneously is benefiting others, whatever the action is.
Just being around them.
Just being around them, and whatever they're doing has an enlightening effect. I mean, even to the extent that, there's the rare story of a master literally killing somebody right there. And wow, how terrible is that? But something that consciousness is being liberated somehow. There are these very rare stories along those lines. It has to do with crazy wisdom. It defies appearances. It defines all the ideas and rules we have for morality and behavior. The ultimate crazy wisdom nature of the wisdom mind that perceives everything omnisciently. There are such stories within the literature of crazy wisdom yogis and yoginis too. That really teaches, at least for me, teaches the nature of what ultimately to strive for. It's not about the rules and regs of conduct. Ultimately, we need these to get to those points, so that we understand how the law of karma works, etc., etc.
Infiltrated so bad.
But once you've purified your karma to where almost all of it is gone, if not all of it, then and you're getting into the zone of no karma, you're free of any karmic consequence, and it doesn't matter. It just spontaneously happens.
Because you don't stay there. So even if you created it, but you know how to, you don't stay in the story of what you just created, you can't create karma.
Yes, right. If you purified all your karma, then
even if you recreated a situation of karma, because you don't live in that story, you stay present, it falls away immediately. Right?
Yeah. Well, it's like you become.
If that's possible.
It's like you become this ball of rainbow light that it can't be stained.
Right.
It's pure.
Like if you ran over a cat in your car, like you wouldn't have karma for that anymore. Whereas like someone like me, I would be like sad all over 2 weeks, like feeling like a bad person and things.
Yeah. There's
I'm just thinking of
whatever
something
it
like
is,
accidental
whatever it is.
that would feel karmic.
So the danger
is that a bad example?
The danger is when people, practitioners, yogis and yoginis, whatever, start to feel like they've gotten to that point. Oh, it doesn't matter. I can do whatever I want, and hardly having realized that we so easily fool ourselves too. So one has to be very careful about thinking that
you want to stay clean so that you don't get stuck in the stickiness of karma.
Yes, yeah. Well, it's a matter of not deluding ourselves.
Well, that's why I thought of the cat thing, because it was an accident.
Yeah.
Or that wouldn't happen to them because they don't have karma within anyway. They don't have any need, like they don't have a need to like run over a cat as an experience anymore. Sorry, I'm stuck on the cat thing.
Those mysterious creatures.
All right, well, that's pretty good talk. Is there anything else you want to say?
Oh, well, of course, there's more to say. We can save whatever else for another time as this rollicking universe keeps rollicking
endless
on.
Amounts of,
Yeah, it never stops being an interesting, fascinating place to be alive, this world right now, where there's literally a spiritual war going on.
And a war.
And
how many wars?
A hot war in various regions. We pray that it doesn't become a global war. I don't think it will. I hope I'm not wrong. I hope I'm not wrong about that. Because then there's going to be a lot more suffering than would otherwise be the case. This has to do with our collective power of prayer and meditation.
I think you're right.
To head that off at the pass. If enough people, and it doesn't really take that many. It's in the thousands.
Do you want to close it with like a little meditation for that, just for anybody who's listening?
Well, so there's one very powerful mantra that one can use to magnetize whatever the circumstances are that we wish to see come about to be fulfilled. Whatever our desires are for a happy, good life and being able to benefit others, less and less suffering, more and more auspicious circumstances. So it's a prayer called Wangdu, the Wangdu prayer, that has to do with these magnetizing deities. So there are 9 of them. So in the visualization, to do with this particular mantra practice and prayer recitation, you visualize all of space filled with magnetizing deities. The color, everything is red in color. All light is red light shining everywhere. And this has to do with awakening the nature of how literally all of space infinitely is filled with magnetizing deities, a magnetizing energy in essence. So if we connect our mind to this ocean of magnetizing deities that we're surrounded by in a very conscious way, through the visualization of these 9 deities that are emblematic of this ocean of magnetizing deities that we're surrounded by, then one can begin to master magnetizing whatever it is that we need, because we're connecting our mind to this ocean of magnetizing deities, to the infinite nature as such. So it's very powerful, and we can put this mantra in, underneath this posting. So I'll just recite it slowly and then quickly. It goes as follows. Om mani peme hung ri dimagaya haya griva varahu kurukuye dakini mahadeva umadevi tita ring gue sidi hung ja. Om mani peme hung ri dimagaya haya griva varahu kurukuye dakini mahadeva umadevi tita ring gue sidi hung ja. Om mani beme hum ri di gaya haya griba varahu kuru kuye da kini ma dewa uma dewi tita ring ring gu e zidi ja. And then reciting it more quickly. You want to recite mantra like it's a river flowing through your mind. Om mani beme hum ri di gaya brau kuye da kini ma dewa dewi ding ding go the ding drum ri di gaya brau kuye da kini ma dewa dewi ding ding go the ding drum ri di gaya brau kuye da kini ma dewa dewi ding ding go the ding drum ri di gaya brau kuye da kini ma dewa dewi ding ding go the ding drum ri di gaya brau kuye da kini ma dewa dewi ding ding go the ding ja. So it's such a powerful mantra in terms of bringing about whatever circumstances that we ultimately wish for. If you do it every day, very consistent. I try to do it 2 or 3 times a day. There's a text that goes with it. If you do a search online of Wangdu prayer, cloud of blessings, WANGDU, anybody can do this practice. It's very powerful. Doesn't require an empowerment or initiation. And it's so powerful in terms of not just magnetizing the conditions you want to see come about in your life, but it also creates a great state of or ability to perform what eventually it brings the so-called siddhis, powers, being able to walk across water or levitate or whatever as well, and well beyond that. So one mustn't do it for just oneself, though. Always ending such a recitation, a mantra practice with a dedication prayer. By the merit of this practice, may I attain enlightenment for the benefit of all sentient beings. By the merit of this practice, may I attain enlightenment for the benefit of all sentient beings. By the merit of this practice, may I attain enlightenment for the benefit of all sentient beings. So that we don't identify with whatever the spiritual accumulation, the energetic accumulation there is on a spiritual level. So that cuts at the root spiritual pride from developing.
I love that.
So that it really is becoming, your enlightened nature, as opposed to how so many have a big fall to do with spiritual pride. All these stories of gurus who become fallen and give the whole business a bad name. So you do that mantra every day, like 1 round of Amala 108. With a visualization that's in the prayer text that you can find online, Wangdu prayer, cloud of blessing. I guarantee it will bring about the results you wish to see come about in your life, as long as you're really heartfully working on generating, developing greater and greater states of altruistic intent in your life, wanting to become a better person and wanting to see the world become a happier, better place, and not just doing it for your own self purposes, self-enrichment as such. Yeah.
Very good. That's a good closing. I'll stop there even though my mind has more questions. So thank you so much.
Well, you always want to leave a little bit of hunger there at the end for more.
I might ask
so people
you
come
after
back.
I turn it off anyway. But anyway, thank you guys all for sitting through this whole thing. And if you have any questions, I guess I noticed that you had questions that I couldn't answer, but hopefully Tom will check in and reply to if you guys have questions, and or you can just go onto his YouTube or Facebook and ask away.
I'll check out whatever the questions are, and I'll respond to some, if not all.
Yeah, I like how Tom has so many tools on how to just lighten up the consciousness. And there's so many. So if you have any questions, ask away. And it seems like he's willing, which is very kind. So thank you guys all for joining. I'm gonna say bye.